I'm here to talk about how to survive the media. And for the youngsters among us, yesterday it was the future. I guess everybody saw it, Back to the Future. That was yesterday, and lots of things that were predicted in that movie, remember movies, came true. We talked to people on the screen, we could touch them. There was 3D movies and so on. So the future is there, and let it come. But how about the media? How about Mediarte? Brief introduction. We organize this few logos, a few labels of all the things that we do as a social fund. We organize trainings. We organize sensitizing campaigns about caution content under pressure. That's more like workability, work-life balance, burnout. Media Stage is a project about internships, traineeships. Kiesvoormedia.be, choosemedia.be is a website to help people to choose, or youngsters who are at secondary school to, okay, I want to do something in the media. And back in the day, certainly in Belgium, it was when you wanted to do something in the media, you went for a Miss Belgium election and then you got in the media immediately, but that is over. That is over now. Better safe than sorry is what we do. It's a sticker for everything that we do around safety. And this week it's the International Week of Safety, and so it's the week that we work upon. Our little robot is linked to everything that we do around diversity. We don't need men, we don't need women, we need robots to work in the industry. That the thing with all these radars, it's more like how to work as a temporary worker in the industry. There's lots of possibilities, but it isn't that clear for the most of us. And the last one is a social chart that has been signed by every organization, whether for directors, for actors, for employees, employers associations. They said, okay, we're going to try to make our sector more workable, more fun to work in. Yeah, but I wanted to show you something for what we do. So a little video. It is media. It was a little clip that we made for a diversity project. Don't be afraid of diversity. Don't be afraid to diverse your company. And also don't be afraid to work in the media. And that's what my lecture is about. A few numbers of the industry that comes in handy when I go on in my topics. Just to tell you how we're doing in Belgium. We have about 11,000 full-time equivalent working in the industry. And what we see is that the number of full-time equivalents is going down. In 2008 we had 11,400 and now we have 11,000. So it's not that a big of a decline, but it's going down. What is going up is the number of companies. We see we have more than, in 6 years, 160 new companies. And what we also see is that, okay, this is Dutch, is the number of the independent workers. We have 200 independent workers more in 2014 than in 2008. So, some things to think about. The four major public broadcasters have about 47% of all workers in the industry. 2014, in 2013, it was 52. So there you see how to survive the media. The broadcasters are going down. Also important, we have nearly 76% of all the companies have less than 5 employees, full-time equivalents. So they're very little. And when we look at those 900 companies, we see the median, so the one in the middle has 1.6 employees. So independent companies, they're a bit of the same. The average age is 37, rather low, and the comparison between men and women is 60-40. I must say, in the movie industry, it's the other way around. In the movie industry, we see that we have 60% are women and 40% are men. But I'll come back to these numbers later on. How to survive the media? When Ingi asked me several months ago, okay, Jan, do you want to be part of this autumn seminar for EGIN? I said sure, but what should I talk about? Because it is more like print media, really audiovisual media. But thinking about how we work and what are the drivers for change and also the challenges that comes with them, they're quite similar. And it's not a happy story that I'm going to tell, but I think it is what it is, and we have to be aware of it. And the first driver for change is the economic shift. Due to the economic crisis and the budgetary cutbacks at public broadcasters and also some private employers, we see that there is a pressure on the existing economic models and a delay on the economic activities and a search for new revenues, also the new papers. What we also see is there are fragile working conditions and an increasing demand for independent workers and or work only for a short period of time. The second is a new digital landscape. Since the 1990s, let's say, the digital world changed, and it affected not only our professional life but also our personal life, and it also created digital natives. As Erin also told, our children, they want to change channel on television this way, but it doesn't work. They don't know what is this. No, it has to go that way. And these changes had a vast impact on how we work and also how we deal with work. And the new or the graduates or the ones who are the starters in our industry, and there are several students here in the audience. They're not anymore seeking for for job security. Okay, I want a job and I'll stay there for the rest of my life. Someone who works now 30, 40 years at the same company, he's about 50 years, I guess, 60. But I don't think we're going to be the ones when I'm 60 that have worked for 40 years at the same company. No, they're open for flexibility and they rather prefer a nice work environment. They don't have problems to work on a freelance basis. That on the one hand. On the other hand, we also see that there is this new reality with this digital landscape, that there is multi-platform and there is also this mobile environment. And those two things needs new maintenance skills, but also new creative and productive or production skills for the creation of those platform-specific content. Is something new, writing for a newspaper which has been written down, and writing a journalist piece for a website, you write it differently because people read differently. So you have to think about it. So there is this need for new creative skills, but also pure IT-based skills. Linked to this new environment. So this new digital landscape is something that we need to look at, and we need to do something with it. Another driver for change is linked to this digital landscape. It's the technological evolution. It has always been important. Keeping up with technological evolutions, but nowadays with the digital shift and other technical evolutions and the digitalization and use of ultra HD quality compression for streaming, for example, these changes increased even faster. So the technological evolution is very important, and professionals need also to combine these technical skills with also creative, or you have to include them, combine them with a creative process in those multidisciplinary teams that we have right now. All of this in an environment where there is, I must say, few investment in training for workers. So unless for the bigger companies in the game, but we see not really high investments in training, vocational training for people working in the business, although there is this technological evolution. So we have to do something with this. The fourth driver for change is globalization. Thanks to the extended digital possibilities, we know there's a big globalization, but not only do we have more possibilities to sell our products, be internationally active, but on the other hand, we also see that we are also being overwhelmed by foreign products. Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, Deezer, they're out there and they're, I might say, steal our viewers, our listeners from our platforms. And when we have no viewers, no listeners, most of the time we have no advertising income. Google eats all of them. So we have to be very, very aware of this globalization, and we need, therefore we need new or other business models. The last driver for change is the social evolution, with new people or young people coming in. We see that there are radical changes in the structure of the organizations. There is this explosive growth of companies, as I mentioned, with a high flexibility. They're mainly, as I said, micro organizations with less than 5 people working in them, but they want to work together. They do not work really as a company. Okay, I want to start a company. No, I want to do a project, and therefore I want to work together with other people and for a certain period of time. But that is also something to keep in mind when we look at how to survive as a company, but also as an individual in this media. Therefore, we have challenges. Not only, okay, why is the media changing? Okay, as I said earlier, it is what it is. We have to do something with it. What are our challenges? Okay, and how can we, as I've written down, how can we guarantee that the talent of every media professional can be optimized? This is a question that needs to be answered when we want, on a long-term base, a sector that, on the one hand, reflects our society, fulfills her social mission, and therefore also employs passionate media professionals. So, first challenge is new business models. The rat race wherein everything must be faster and cheaper is in the long term harmful for the quality and the creativity on which the sector depends. And fast and cheap content leads every time to economic suicide. And nobody can be creative when it doesn't get the time to be creative. Only real top talents can enforce time, but youngsters get barely the means nor the time to prove themselves. So, and time costs money, and that demands also a long-term vision. And therefore we're in need for business models who create enough space and oxygen as well, on a financial as on a content level, for creativity and quality. And due to this oxygen, the sector can invest in you as an existing talent, which offers again this long-term perspective. Because we need to look at the loss of the advertising income, and also what Erin spoke about, the free access to information model. We have to cope with it. It's out there. First challenge, new business models. The second challenge is training and support. These fast-moving changes that comes towards us ensure that the media professional must be prepared also to school himself permanently. Schools aren't enough anymore, and the employee, the worker, the independent worker, whoever, also needs to be guided well. And attracting media professionals and train and develop them needs, once again, a long-term vision. And therefore we distinguish for this training and support 3 levels. First of all, higher education. Second, interns, trainees, the starters. And third of all, vocational training. Higher education, schools lay the fundamentals. They learn the ABC for employment in the media industry, and therefore they're extremely important for working in that media. But what we see, and I speak for Belgium right now, is a fragmented landscape with a competitive drive, which is good, between those schools, universities, and training institutes. But they lead all too often to internal rivalries between those comparable trainings. And there's this oversupply of schools, and they don't always deliver what the sector needs. For example, we need reality TV directors. We don't need author movie directors. But schools say, hey, we're an art school, we are delivering author movie directors, and the rest is, hey, we're an art school. And then we say, okay, discussion stops here. But that's very, very difficult to deal with. And schools all too often don't prepare students sufficiently for the real work, and whereby there's this lack of demanded competencies and also lack of knowledge of how does the industry work. They don't know, okay, how much am I going to, how much is my wage going to be? How do I, where do I work? Which companies do exist? They don't know. Okay, schools say, yeah, but we don't have the time for this. We school them. And we say, yes, but you must learn them the ABC. And that is already a problem. Nonetheless, that commitment, passion, and talent makes the real difference. Schooling is one thing, but certainly the commitment and the passion is the most important thing. The second, let's say, sub-challenge in training and support is trainees and starters. Due to the fact, and once again, Belgian example, mainly master and art schools don't have internships in their curricula. So we say, okay, we're not a bachelor, we don't have something like that, and then we say, yeah, but where do they actually learn how to work in the industry? So that's a problem. Another problem, or another challenge, that's more positive, that we see is this tendency to work for free. And certainly our sector, broadcast, film industry, they all want to work in the industry, and they all work, yeah, how do I get in that industry? How working for free? Be a production assistant, okay, that's doing the catering, or standing in the corner of a street telling people not to cut in, do that street. That's not where you actually learn working industry. So that is a challenge. Try to support, in this case, starters, trainees, for a good entrance into the industry. And third, it's vocational training, or the lifelong learning, as we say. This is linked to the fast technological evolution that leads to skills gaps, with the existing labor potential. That's normal. The evolution is there. You have to learn every time, on and on. And at the same time, we also see that employers have no problem attracting creative people, because they want to work in the business. But nowadays we also see, as I've mentioned earlier, the boundaries between digital, technical, and creative becomes less and less indistinct, and employers more and more seek for that mixture of creative and technological competencies. So, and that combined with entrepreneurial skills, new business models, and second, the soft skills linked to this social innovation and how you deal with working in the industry. We see that there is this sigh for a culture of lifelong learning, because there's this need. But on the other hand, we also notice that there are few investments by employers for real vocational training. Why? Because there's this idea that when I pay for a training, he might leave to another company, or even worse, on a sectoral level, he might leave to a different sector. But that is what we see right now. Employers don't invest. They work on a project basis. Okay, I hire someone for 3 weeks, for 3 months. He already has to know what I want him to know. So I don't invest, but okay, where does he learn? Yeah, that's his problem. Okay, but that's not a long-term vision, that's a short-term vision. What we also see is that people leave, and the average age was 37, which is very low. People leave the industry. Why? Because they want a proper wage. They do not longer want to work 24/7. They want to be at home when their wife is at home. They want to raise their kids, and they want to have a loan, because with a salary for 3 months there, a few months there, a bank doesn't really gives you a loan. So they leave and they say, it is just broadcast, you know. When I was young, it was very sexy, but now I've seen it's far than sexy. So that's something that's also a real challenge for our industry, that those short-term perspective no longer form this barrier to invest in training. The last, no, it's not the last, nearly, challenge is the working conditions. In the future, the audiovisual industry will remain an important employer within the creative industry, and it's only going up as we saw, bit by bit, but it's going up. But also this sector is not as any other sector, because this drive and passion of the media professional makes a difference. But this drive and passion should also be used optimally and not be misused. Okay, they want to work 14 hours a day. Let them work. If he doesn't do it, another one will do. This increasing economic pressure creates an environment in which the media professional needs to work faster and cheaper once again. And once again, this rat race kills creativity and the quality, and that is a threat for the well-being of the employees and leads all too often to burnout. An important question: how can we move via innovation and new partnerships to qualitative growth? I'm convinced that this question could be answered when we organize new forms of dialogue and collaborations between all players in the industry. And therefore we need once again a long-term perspective, but also from today on, new ways also of career planning, with new people coming in. I'm 37, we have no old people. We also see that people look at a different on a different way to the industry or working in the business, because in our industry we have a rather flat career with all those little companies. There is not such a thing as promotion. When there are 5 people working in the business in your company, there's the owner and the others, or perhaps his wife, who also works in the company. This lack of growth perspective might outgrow, or this could be that people outgrow their job or lose their passion and drive. But when you want to move on, this implements new competencies, vocational training, new competencies, leadership, commercial activities, marketing, management, who differ from the initial mainspring. So also their career planning is also a responsibility for the people who work in the industry. You don't have to point the finger at the employer all the time. In this case, it's also your own, for the young ones, for the students, it's also your responsibility. And try also to craft your own job and make sure that you stay in business. And when you begin in the industry, start not with the idea, okay, I want to make business. No. Use the idea, I want to stay in business. Last but not least, the most important challenge in our industry are obtaining new skills and new competencies. When you want to stay in business, whether it's called future skills, whether it's called multi-skilling, whether it's called T-shaped skills, skills everywhere. And whether you learn on the job, whether you learn in school, whether you learn by reading a book, by looking at a YouTube webinar, whatever, try to be schooled, try to be trained. And I believe there's this thing called future for our media. Thank you.